You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
Hi, I'm Kasey, and I'll be your host for this week's episode of Nurse Converse podcast. Everyone's journey into nursing is different and unique. Some have been called into the profession after a personal experience. It could have been their own illness or diagnosis, or possibly being the support person for a family or friend during a hospitalization or treatment. Or maybe you were one of the people who were just born into the profession. You come from a long line of nurses. So today, this episode is going to be about my journey, and none of the above is mine. In this episode, I'll take you on the winding and at times wacky ways I fell into nursing and nursing education. First, we got to go back to 2004 when I was a naive 18-year-old trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. Yeah, I'm a millennial and very proud of that fact. I always had an interest in law enforcement and thought being a woman cop kind of fit into my narrative of this tough, masculine energy, handle business kind of persona. I was the youngest of two brothers, and my oldest brother was disabled, which made me a tough cookie and at times too grown for my own good. My parents gave me the option to live at home with a reduced cost for rent and go to a community college or become an adult and pay rent, full rent. So I obviously took the community college option. You know, it's interesting because I always struggled in grade school. And when I was younger, I was diagnosed in third grade with an encoding learning disability. I really struggle with numbers. Math is something I am terribly awful at and shy away from. I lacked confidence in school, and I never thought I was smart enough to be a college student. My high school mostly had people go on to pursue four-year degrees, and I just didn't think I could do it. I started at the local community college, and I studied criminal justice, and I took some electives that were forensics. While I continued my education, I applied for several law enforcement agencies, but none of them ever panned out. I ended up getting a full ride for my junior and senior year at a local university, and I was able to obtain my bachelor's in forensic studies. I fell in love with forensics, and in May of 2010, I started my career as a medical legal death investigator for the state medical examiner's office. And no, it is nothing like CSI. Basically, my job entailed driving out to death scenes. I would assess the body, I would take photographs, and I would write up a document, a scene description or narrative for the medical examiner to go over prior to autopsy. I would tag and bag the body and return it for refrigeration until autopsy. At this time, I was in my early 20s, newly graduated and engaged. I worked 16-hour shifts, and I was living the dream because I had found a really tight-knit group of women who were also death investigators. And during that time, I had my two children, and I decided that death investigation was a dead-end job. No pun intended. When I would take calls from local hospitals to report deaths requiring autopsy, I was enthralled and really interested with the medical aspect of some of these cases. I was constantly Googling medical acronyms. I thought maybe I could be a doctor. I bought the book for the GRE, specifically a medical examiner, and I quickly realized that it was not for me and my family. Then one night shift, I found a second degree entry-level nursing program in the area, and I did the research. It would require me to take 7 science prerequisites that I hadn't formally taken in my previous degree. And so I got to work. I took the 7 science requirements while mothering my children and working part-time in the county as a death investigator. Anatomy and Physiology 1 and 2 were my ultimate favorite classes. And chemistry literally almost took me out. I did not know if I'd be able to make it. In fall of 2015, I was accepted into my nursing program, and I had no idea what I was about to undergo. The learning curve was vast, and I quickly realized what I had done in my previous degrees, I wouldn't be successful in nursing. It was completely different studying. I had a lot of mental anguish at this time. I was stressed to the max. I felt like I was feeling at being a mom and at being a nursing student. I made a group of friends, which I didn't think I would need. And with the help and encouragement of them and our first clinical instructor, I survived. After that first semester, I had a better grasp of what it would take to be successful, and I was better at balancing my mental health. And for the most part, I was in a sound place. After the completion of the first semester, I knew I had to get into the hospital. I applied at a local teaching hospital affiliated with my nursing school, and I took the first job that I was offered. I started at a trauma center, med-surg unit, and as a student nurse. And boy, was I in over my head. Those first couple of shifts were trial by fire. I can remember aching and my legs being complete jelly. I decided to stay on as a nurse on the unit. It felt safe and secure, and I knew where most of the supplies were, the wipes, the most important. And you would think because I had previously worked on the unit, my transition would be smooth. Let's ask my preceptors. I struggled with time management. I couldn't make connections to the patient's plan of care. I really lacked confidence, and the unit culture at the time was really, really unhealthy. I didn't know it, but I was currently battling depression. I had started to realize throughout the nursing school journey that what I thought was just stress and anxiety about being successful was actually depression. And up until this point in my life, I had never struggled with mental illness. I felt as though I had a very good handle on my coping skills and strategies. And I just remember feeling sad. And I just thought it was stress, right? I mean, nursing school is a huge change. I saw the people around me, they were stressing out, they were worried, they were constantly worried about their grades and how they were doing in clinical and if they were going to be prepared to take the NCLEX. And it was just a hamster wheel of emotion. I kept saying, next semester will be better. When I graduate, it will be better. I'll get better. I'll feel better. I remember standing in the convention center and graduating with my husband by my side. He was pinning me. And I was tearing up, and it wasn't for happiness. And that's when I realized something was terribly wrong. Because here I was graduating, something I'd been working so hard for the last 2 years in nursing school and all the years before that, getting my prereqs done, and I still didn't feel happy. I wasn't complete. I thought, okay, it has to be the NCLEX. I ended up going on vacation with my family. Still, I was not in a good place mentally. That's when I realized something might really be wrong. I got back from vacation and I signed up for my NCLEX, and I went and I found a therapist that my insurance supplied. And I went in there and I just laid it all on her, this stranger. And she was basically saying, you need real help. I am worried about you. And here's a stranger who doesn't know me saying those things. And I'm a nursing student. I know what happens when you say what you really feel. People are going to hospitalize you. I decided therapy was not a good fit for me. I left more confused than relieved. And I started to talk a little bit more about what I was really feeling with my family, my husband. And it was hard for him to hear some of the things that I was saying. I tried to get him to understand that it wasn't him, right? That there was a serotonin problem in my head. I went back to the science. I went back to the A&P. I went back to the facts because facts make sense to me. And what I was feeling did not make sense. Fast forward a couple weeks, I was preparing for the NCLEX. I took my NCLEX and I passed in 75 questions. I did not feel confident. I actually came out to the car and Googled, can someone fail the NCLEX in 75 questions? Fun fact, they could at the time. NCLEX has thankfully changed since I took it. And I didn't know how to feel. Next day, we officially found out I passed. My husband was more happy than I was. I think he was more happy when he got the results that I passed the NCLEX than when I told him we were pregnant the first and second time. And we laugh and make jokes about that. But he saw how hard it was for me to get through that program. And he saw the day in and day out of the struggle. And when I passed, in a way, he passed because he was a huge part of my support system. So I passed the NCLEX. Yay! What do we do next? Well, we go and work as a new grad. And there were some struggles, like I've already talked about before. I felt really bad. I thought I had made a mistake, not becoming a nurse, but I didn't think maybe the unit that I was on was for me because of that unhealthy culture, because I felt a lack of support, but also because my mental health was not okay. So I did some serious self-reflection and I took my mental health seriously. I decided to go to my primary and I started medication. And that was a game changer. A lot of the older nurses or the nurses who were a little toxic, they left. And we had an amazing, positive unit culture. We were family. We still are family. We celebrated holidays together. We were there for weddings and births and just amazing things. I quickly became a charge nurse on this unit and a clinical leader on the unit, and I love it. My whole heart and soul. I'm still bedside there. At 8 months into my nursing profession, I got my first practicum student and I had no clue what I was doing, guys. I was lost in the sauce, but I knew I loved it. And I fell head over heels in love with teaching. After I realized this passion, I reached out to a professor at my alma mater and I started teaching a foundations course. It was just a 4-week clinical at a nursing home. And from there it grew. Every semester, there was something added to my plate. I taught in the lab for assessment and foundations, and then got the courage to finally teach med-surg clinicals. COVID happened, and that was quickly diverted to virtual simulations. After COVID settled, I knew I wanted to teach full-time, and teaching jobs were scarce. I had a former nursing colleague reach out to me on social media and provide an opportunity. She had interviewed at a job, but it just wasn't a great fit for her at the time. This was a game changer, and I am eternally grateful for this. I am still at that nursing school. I started in May of 2021. I was thrown into nursing simulation and had to facilitate a sim. And while it was not love at first teach, simulation has become a part of my everyday life. And 3 years later, I'm considered an expert, which is still funny to me at times. I was also pursuing an advanced degree in health professions education. At that time, I thought I was up for the challenge of a PhD. The great thing about the university is they had an off-ramp and I was able to get a second master's. I just knew I wasn't in the right place. It wasn't the right university for me. And you have to follow your gut when you feel that. So yeah, it was scary. It was scary to start nursing. It was scary to be a nurse and have that responsibility. And then it's scary to be responsible for students undergoing their nursing education. So here I am today. It was scary, but so worth it. I'm 36. I've been nursing for almost 7 years. 6 of those years, I've been in nursing education. And I teach entry-level nursing students in lab, in simulation, and in clinical. I also teach graduate students in the evening in simulation and how to facilitate nursing simulations. in an MSN education track. And I still work bedside where I started 7 years ago, more than that actually, as a student nurse. I love what I do, and I start my DNP in clinical leadership this May. I am living the dream when it comes to professional happiness. My career advice for all of you is find your fire and let it burn. The good days, the bad, and the downright ugly, I love being in nursing education and being a small part of so many nurses' journeys. I couldn't be where I am without my family. To my nursing colleagues and to my friends, who's always supported me and my latest crazy idea. I am eternally grateful, and I would not be here on this podcast if it wasn't for all of you. I don't normally do a podcast where I just talk, and I love that connection and that bond that I get out of nursing education and teaching and having those conversations, the good, the hard, the challenging. So please, if you're interested in my nursing journey, or if you just want to get to know me as a nursing educator or mentor, you could always find me on Instagram at Dr. Nurse PRN, and I would love to talk to you.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.